Hey guys!
Hey guys!
We're back with another X-Files review. This time we're reviewing the X-Files Season 10, Episode 2, titled Founder's Mutation. If you haven't seen it yet and you want to avoid any spoilers, you're going to want to skip this video and come back later because everything we say from this point forward is going to be a spoiler. Okay, right out of the gate, this episode felt more like the classic X-Files than the season premiere did. What did you think of it as a new fan of the X-Files?
It was still relatively easy to follow. I had a little bit of confusion with their baby, but I'm pretty sure that cleared up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it got a little confusing because I didn't know the backstory there. But otherwise, yeah, it was just as easy to follow.
Speaking of Scully and Mulder's son, William, they had to give him up, and there's a whole big long story about William. He had like psychic abilities, if I remember correctly, that's what it was, and they did something and they took his abilities away, but they wanted to keep him safe from the government and anybody else who might want to, experiment on him or whatever, so they gave him up. And Scully is very open that she is still very much bothered by the fact that they had to give up William.
Yeah. Well, as any mother would be, you don't want to give up your kid.
Yeah.
So the fact that she really didn't have a choice in the matter from what it sounds like they had to, or their son would have been in jeopardy. So, yeah.
And Mulder, in the very kind of macho sense, having to play the character of the strong male, he says, yes, I do still think about William, but I've had to put that behind me. And at the end of the episode, we find out that is a total lie.
Yeah.
He thinks about William and daydreams and has these fantasies that basically turn into nightmares the same exact way Scully does.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, though, is although they both have, it starts out as a very happy daydream that turns into this nightmare, and they both have that, but they both have like their own versions of it.
Yeah.
Like in Scully's, he's turning into some kind of alien hybrid because he's got alien DNA, maybe, because she does.
Yeah. And I definitely think it had to do with the case they were on.
Yeah.
Of, deformed, or children with genetic deformities. Mm-hmm. And so she was kind of like thinking it was something that was put into them. And so having these nightmares that her son was the same and that it just hadn't manifested yet.
And Mulder, drawing from his own life experience, he has this nightmare of William being taken the same way his sister was when he was a child.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see they're both kind of in the same place emotionally and having their own personal touches or spins on it. The story of this episode was really interesting because it was kind of a mythology episode, but it was also kind of a villain/monster of the week episode.
Yeah.
And they melded that together really, really well.
Yeah. And the villain is actually a genetic scientist who is he's testing on children, and it seems like it was women who are homeless or come from bad backgrounds are given sanctuary in this hospital type setting, and they get them pregnant and use the pregnancy to experiment with genetics. In
an interesting kind of twist from the classic X-Files villain of the week, ordinarily like the person they zero in on at first turns out to be the villain, more often than not in classic X-Files. This time they zero in on Kyle because he has the psychic noise ability that caused Dr. Sanjay to kill himself. He almost killed Mulder. And so in a traditional, typical classic X-Files episode, Kyle would have been the villain. But no, it was the doctor who was experimenting on his own children and children of homeless or otherwise not so well off moms. And it actually connects to the overall mythology of Season 10. With the government experimenting on humans with alien DNA.
Yes, because this trial was funded by the Department of Justice. So it was still, the government knew about these genetic testings that were going on.
So it's really cool. It's a monster of the week and it's a mythology episode, and that was and the great thing is they managed to do a lot in this episode, and it didn't feel like anything got shortchanged. It was great,
and it didn't feel rushed.
You're right.
Sometimes when you have a lot of things happening in an episode, it feels rushed because there's no break between the action or the story.
Speaking of experimenting on these kids with using the alien DNA, Scully calls out Dr. Goldman and flat out confronts him with it. She's like, using alien DNA, and he doesn't deny it.
No,
he kind of is like, quit being silly, but he doesn't say no.
Yeah, and she even points it out. She's like, he didn't answer any of my questions.
William, going back to William, he's mentioned several times throughout this episode, and he was mentioned in the first episode. And I gotta think he's gonna connect back into the story somewhere. Maybe he'll show back up, and maybe he has re-manifested these abilities he had as a baby. Maybe he has been being experimented on. But I don't think they would spend so much time talking about that character if it's not gonna link to something else later.
Yeah, and not only talking about the character, but this whole episode was kind of dedicated to children like this character that was mentioned. So yeah, it does seem like an awful lot of time was focused on it for it to not come back in the end.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's it for this review. If there was something we missed, something you think we should have mentioned that we didn't, or if we got something wrong, let us know down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to tell us by clicking that like button and subscribe for more reviews.
And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.